Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you game 2 in a best of 3 between Fussel and Player in the grand final of Herr's Grand Tournament. Today we are going to be seeing Colin Bell, and on the Allied side Fussel has chosen the 15th Infantry Scots, and on the Axis side Player is going to be using the 1st SS-Panzer. So, this is certainly a game I've been waiting to cast, especially after the first game that they played previously, where Player defeated Fussel with the 2nd Armoured French versus the Festung Gros Paris. It went down to the full 40 minutes, but Player seemed to have an advantage throughout the majority of the game, as he really made his troops very cost efficient, and well played to him for doing so. In this one, it may be a little bit more difficult. 15th Infantry, certainly a top tier division, and can be extremely annoying to break through. Well known for its infantry availability, it has its strong Churchills, Churchill 5, Churchill 7s. It of course has very strong AT guns with high veterancy. So that's something that Player is going to have to work through in this game. On the side of Player though, his first SS, it's a top tier choice as well. In the early game you rely very heavily on the Stugs and a lot of infantry availability in the form of Volksdeutsche. Some players like to go for some of the elite troops as well, like the Sturm Pioneers. Then there is of course, moving into phase B, Panthers available. Like straight off the bat, Panther G can come in phase B, and that is one thing that can make the first SS extremely strong and successful. They just have a lot of decent units that can really support them very well. Even have access to Ju-87Gs, for example, which may be useful for picking off difficult armoured targets. So, Fussel's going to have to bring this back and win this game if he wants to take first place in the tournament. Otherwise, Player will win overall. All to play for. Let's have a look at what Player is putting down on his side of the map. So at the top side we do see the MG42, it's going to be the 2-star variant. There is going to be some Landesschützen further down with some Sturm Pioneers here. There's also the command in there of course, accompanied by a Flammpanzer, which will put a lot of pressure onto infantry in the factory early on, unless the factory infantry on the side of the 15th Infantry Scots is accompanied by something like a Honey in the early game. But then again, there is the Stug 3 that might be able to deal with that. On the bottom side for Player, he is going to be bringing in the SBW222 with the Recon Infantry, and the Panzerjäger Stug down there with a command. So 2 Stugs off the bat, definitely a strong start for Player. On the side of Fussel, he has an interesting deployment down on this bottom side, deploying plenty of rifles. These might be Bren Group. There's an AVRE here with the command carrier and command infantry, and a 6-pounder. Then there's going to be the MMG carrier with some recon there. Some more infantry spread out across the map with what seems like some rifles and the command infantry heading towards the town. But one thing that is interesting to see is that there is no AP unit currently accompanying any of these units on the top side, which will leave this Flammpanzer in a very, very good position. So if Player can maybe exploit that very much if he identifies that there is nothing there to kill it. The only thing that will be able to is the Piet from the command squad, and that is unreliable at best. So Player may have an opportunity here to do a lot of damage early on in this game. But on this bottom side, an AVRE is going to be very difficult for Player to deal with. Yes, he has 14 AP on this Stug 3, but at the end of the day, that's a 15 front armor AVRE, and at max range will not be able to penetrate it unless the AVRE shows its side or rear armor. So looks like Fussel did mix in Bren Group with his rifles here, going to be using them, spreading them out, and just trying to hold on to as much ground as he can, get those little extra points in the early game. Gave him a total of 12 before Player, of course, caught up. And now we see the push coming into the bottom side. It's going to be quite a significant push, and this 3-star AT gun definitely going to be a large threat for the Stug 3. If that can cover the AVRE, then the AVRE can go to work on this 222 on the bottom side. One shot from that Spigard mortar is going to wreck that armoured car. On the top side, the Volksdeutsche, they're trying to make some ground here, but what doesn't help them is that they are disheartened. So at this sort of range, the rifles will hold out quite well, and that's something that we can see happening, even though they're only really relying on their Bren guns for range. Flampanzer is going to come around the corner and try and help things out. And generally, when you see a Flampanzer on the field, I think you can be, well, you kind of have to be aggressive with it to make as much ground as you can, as quickly as you can, because often they are countered very quickly indeed. Now, although the Flampanzer has a limited range, it is 240 meters, I believe, instead of, or 260 even, rather than the 200 that the Piat has. So that's something that player was taking advantage of there to delete that command squad, which now leaves these rifles completely vulnerable to surrender. Honey is on the way though, and that is looking to save the day here, as player is taking full control over this factory. Avklar on the bot side are going to be bumping into these Bren group. Bren group are pretty bad, honestly, at close range. They can only use their 3 Lee Enfields, which amounts to a total of 1 HE. So even 2 men from these Avklar, they can definitely do a lot of damage to Bren group. AVRE is currently sitting here, just trying to shrug off the shots from the Stug 3. 6-pounder's had enough of that though. It's going to take its own shot, but the MG42 trying to cover best it can. 222 chewed up one of these rifles, was absolutely deleted it. And the Bren group, well, with the Avklar down to 1 man, they actually ended up doing the job. So now the Stug 3 that was on the top side going to be heading down to behind the factory, probably to try and counter this Honey later down the line and re-enable the Flampanzer to push over Fussel's infantry. But currently, no significant lead for either player, although Fussel is counting a +1 early on, which may make all the difference. These extra early points can often decide games. The Stug 3, it's kind of got an awkward critical. Transmission damage is always really annoying because it basically slows your tank and makes it very unwieldy to use, and often means that it gets left in an awkward situation. But here the rifle leader comes in with his Piat, does kill the 222, and that's going to definitely seal this 52% territory lead for the time being, which, yeah, like I said, could add up in the late game. Panzerjägerstug is going to be coming in here, looking for the shots onto either the Honey or the command carrier at the moment, just to do a little bit of damage and free up this infantry to push forwards a bit more. MG42s are coming in, and it's surprising to me to see player rely on these so much. He has 2 cards of these 2 MG42s with 2-star veterancy on his division, which isn't something that's very common, especially when you accompany that with 2-star Sturmpioneers and a card of Volksdeutsche. So in A, he is actually deploying 5 cards of infantry, which is a lot. So what he's looking to do here is definitely pin a lot of this infantry early on, kind of take this 6-pounder out of the equation so that his Stug 3s can get to work on killing this AVRE. AVRE though, that's going to be fire positioning towards these buildings, and that will then allow the rifles to almost suicide charge towards them and hope that the MGs don't jump forwards and activate. Stug 3 crew knockouts the AVRE, 6-pounders trying to come in to cover that AVRE, but the MG42 is trying to do its job here and knock out that 6-pounder before it gets into an awkward position. Hasn't managed to, however, and now with 2 Honeys accompanying the AVRE, there's potential for a lot of damage to be done here because these Honeys can help pin down the MG42s. And the main reason that player can get away with this at the moment is quite simply due to the engagement range of the AVRE. If this was a Churchill 5, then it could basically run all over these units. but instead is forced to engage at closer ranges in order to do damage. But in this case, goodbye to that MG42 squad. Took a whole load of HE to the face there and got deleted in one shot. I think the building did as well. Stug 3 is still having a go. MG42 going to be pinning down the rifles. 6-pounders come in. 3-star veterancy. Has more than enough AP to penetrate the Stug 3. Does unfortunately bounce. At max range, that 6-pounder has about a 40% penetration chance, I think, against 8 armor. Actually, maybe a bit less. I think it's like 36. But still, the fact that it will hit pretty much every shot because of its high veterancy does make it quite likely to get the kill. Anyway, MG42 going to be moving forwards once again. AVRE, however, is going to be moving to one side and was showing side armor, so player took the shot and was unlucky to not penetrate, because that side armor of the AVRE is considerably weaker than the front armor. And that's one way that you can get rid of such an annoying unit early on. AVRE once again gets a shot into the MG42. MG42 just about gets out of there. Probably due to the destruction of the building more than anything. German pioneers have moved up. Going to be engaging these rifles. Looking to take those out and gain more ground whilst the Volksdeutsche continue forwards. Another 6-pounder spotted on the top side. That's something that player is going to have to deal with at some point. So now we see this 6-pounder on the bottom side going once again alongside the MG42. Stug 3 does manage to take it out, and that's probably one of the most unsuccessful early games 3-star 6-pounders I have ever seen. That is very unfortunate for Fussel. Generally those 6-pounders can clean house in the early game, but just enough front armor here for the Stug 3 to bounce those shots. And that's all that mattered at the end of the day. Now this half-track can be deployed elsewhere in order to get rid of other AT guns. Thing is, Fussel's still holding the lead with the 247 points on the board. Had that +1 that definitely added up a little bit. Honey, though, did take a weapon jam from the Stug 3 as it passed by. And those Honeys are going to have to be very careful engaging these Stugs, because they are quite potent. They do have that 14 AP that is more than enough to destroy the 5 front armor of the Honeys. Player trying to get forwards with his Volksdeutsche here. Potentially into the range with the Panzerfaust, but AVRE is on target. Does not want to get shot at by the AVRE. Not at all. Going to have to back off from that. Fussel is going to put it onto a fire position, trying to predict the movement of the Volksdeutsche. Does not actually hit the mark. Meanwhile on the top side, Stug 3, that's going to be hitting and internal fragmenting one of the Honeys. Actually ends up killing it. 6-pounder took out the 222. There is a huge chance for a salient to form for player on this top side. If he gets through the 6-pounder, it will enable a lot of movement from his troops and give him a lot of ground. This 6-pounder does manage to find the shot under stress onto the SBW-232, which takes away some of the veterancy from the Stug 3. But the MG42 really being a nuisance, and players' use of these MG42s so far has been pretty crucial actually in stopping the 6-pounders from dominating the Stug 3. Now players invested in the Focke-Wulf 190. Will he be able to get back onto the back of this Spitfire Mark 9 before it gets out? I think he will, just about. Does get the kill. Churchill 5 now has come down the main road. Be bypassing the factory. There's not really too much of a threat in the factory at the moment. I'm not sure if the 1st SS get Panzer tracks in Phase A. I don't believe they do, because people tend to focus so much on the Stugs. So that's not something that Fussel needs to worry about going past the factory like this. Usually this factory can present quite a big threat because it will cause you to be flanked if you just ignore it. But with this Stug 3, really isn't doing too much to be a big threat. Now, crew knockout onto that Stug 3 is pretty big, but players' movement of his Fussel does allow them to get their MGs on target, and that pins down the 6-pounder, preventing the kill. That Stug 3 only has 6 HE rounds at the end of the day, something that the 6-pounders can take advantage of if the Stug 3 wants to go toe-to-toe. So now Rifles trying to engage the Volksdeutsche. You can see that the MG42 does so much damage when they are high veterancy and so quickly. Incredible stuff. Melted one of the rifle squads. They're now going to push on to the Volksdeutsche, and I think players just kind of relying on pinning these down and maybe trying to find the surrender. The Dingo's not actually close enough to stop that. Did get moved into range. So player did have a chance there to pick up a couple cheeky surrenders, but not quite. Only actually being the one to make the flanky move into the factory here. Not something that I expected to see. Generally when players control the factory, you don't just push in randomly on the side because there's more than likely infantry in some of these buildings, but Fussel taking the risk here, getting nice and close, looking for the kill onto the 257, but didn't find it. If he could, that would enable his AT guns more in the early game to be a bigger threat against things like these Stug 3s. Volksdeutsche though doing their work, but are getting low on ammunition. You can see they've used up all of their MG ammunition there actually. Now just engaging with the Kar 98, which is maybe just enough to pin the rifles. AU-87 now coming in. Can it get the kills? Churchill 5 is the first target, does not hit. Spitfire Mark 9. Going to try and prevent that from getting another run in. Does manage to do so, but is more than likely dead to this Focke-Wulf 190 due to the intervention of the SD KFZ-72s with their 37mm AA guns. It just depends if the Focke-Wulf can actually get on the back, and it looks like it did. Second plane down. Player managing this very well in the skies. And holding Fussel back on the ground for the time being. Did make quite a nice dent on his top side. But now needs to find his way through a Churchill 4 and the 6-pounder. Get himself some points on the board and then carry on from there. And at the moment, with a shooter knocked out and transmission damage, that Stug 3 is in a very bad position. 6-pounder taking plenty of shots. Surely going to find the kill. There we go. Stug 3 goes down. That Stug has bounced too many shots from that 6-pounder already. Well, from both of the 6-pounders it's been up against. So finally gone down there. Volksdeutsche getting hit very hard by that first shot from the Churchill 5. Direct hit does 4 damage. Churchill 4 now coming into the top side since the Stug did manage to deal with the other one. Panzer just going in. Does manage to surrender the rifles, but the 6-pounder is going to clean that up. Does, however, reveal quite a large hole in the defense of Fussel on the top side that player might be able to exploit if he brings in or brings over this mortar half-track and starts trying to hit that 6-pounder. Because so far, this mortar half-track hasn't really done too much, which has been quite surprising. Generally, micro across the board is pretty good on these players, but it seems as though the mortar micro is lacking at the moment. Stug 3 does manage to clean up the Churchill 5 on the bottom side. You can see the infantry from Fussel that did try to push into this compound did get hit very hard. Volksdeutsche are going to get forced to fall back, but the Pioneers still holding the ground there. They did use up their HE grenade in that engagement, so they no longer have that at their disposal. And honestly, this MMG carrier might be able to exploit that because the Pioneer Fielders now are very vulnerable to like a close range engagement since their only HE grenade at close range has been used, and the Kar 98s are turned off by player to stop them from revealing themselves at distance without having to use return fire. That's why you can see them turned off on the bottom side. On the top side, Volksdeutsche just straight up running out of ammunition still. AVRE going to get involved here. Does pin down the Pioneer Führer. Surely the rifle's going to find the surrender. Indeed they do. Nice play by Fussel. Working around this AVRE. Has kept it alive so far. There are, however, 2 Panzerjägerstugs here. And these have the potential to double team this AVRE and potentially find a side shot. But not for long. If the 6-pounder gets a clean hit, another transmission damage for the Stug 3. And surely this last shot should get the kill. Yes, it does. Now the reason it's more likely for a gun to hit over time is because for every shot a unit fires at the same target, it gets more accurate if it's like consecutive shots. And that's something that AT guns can definitely take advantage of. And when they have a veterancy like this, it's generally pretty likely that eventually one of those shots is going to go through that armor. Because that was, you know, a 900 meter range engagement roughly. So there was a little bit more AP than the armor presented on the Stug 3. So this is actually a Stug 3G down here now instead of a Stug 3F. So bringing in those Phase B units. Panzer IV J is going to be coming in on the top side for player. But so far, it has remained more or less a 50-50 throughout the game so far. Volksdeutsche are going to be engaging the rifles there. You have to be careful that they don't run out of ammunition attacking the rifles in hard cover though. Is a bit of a wasted engagement otherwise. Stuart Recce has come in on the top side with the Recce squad. That finds the speed troop and they get absolutely melted by the 50 cal and 30 cals. Stuart Recce now coming into the mid as well. That unloads will reveal the MG42, which could easily clean up the Recce. But the Stuart Recce gets in there first, gets the job done. So Stug 3 going to be trying to avoid the engagement with the 6-pounder, but you can see that the 6-pounder is being microed around. I think Fussel was maybe trying to get a nice clean shot there onto the Stug 3 and take it out quickly. But instead now going to be falling it back, which is something that you should generally do. Like if you use an AT gun and you're either unsuccessful or you are successful, always try and move it afterwards, because otherwise you leave it there to be potentially hit by like artillery, for example. Now player has invested in Panzerschrecks and is going to be moving one up into range of this honey. Probably just short there of getting the shot off, but we shall see as the Ju-87G does come in, gets a shooter wounded onto the AVRE. Spitfire Mark 9 on the field once again. This time I'm not sure the Focke-Wulf will be able to pick up the kill because it will be forced back itself by the Bofors, whilst the Spitfire Mark 9 gets forced back by the 37mm. Churchill 5 sweeps up one of those Volksdeutsche, and these heavy tanks certainly being very difficult to deal with. So player, what's he going to do? He's going to invest in a Panther G, of course. 7 accuracy in Phase B, very, very strong armoured unit for this phase. Saying that, however, only 2 seconds till Phase C. We're now there, and that's going to enable everything both players can ever want in their divisions. So this Panther G, I feel like it's got a lot of work to do. It's got to clean up the Churchill 5, it's got to kill the AVRE, and then once it does so, that may open the door on this bottom side. But Fussel is ready for any response. He does have the 17-pounder on the field. He's kept the 6-pounder alive. And player just hasn't really been investing in any artillery to counter AT guns at this point in the game. He does have the 257 here, but once again, he has barely used it. He's fired a total of 9 rounds from that, and it's 20 minutes, over 20 minutes into the game. Panzer is going to be rolling around once again in the factory, and we'll be finding a little bit of damage onto one of the rifle squads, but nothing too significant. Honey might actually get a nice shot here into the factory and find the kill. That would have been nice to clean up that Panzer. Now we see player bringing in some reinforcements, most likely Volksdeutsche. In phase C as the first SS, you can get an 8 availability card of Volksdeutsche, which definitely gives you more than you can ever need. But one thing I will say is Fussel has dealt with players' infantry quite well so far, and is currently sitting at the 51% territory lead, which potentially could lead to 52 and therefore the +1, which will allow him to start ticking up the score even more, and that's exactly what he's managed to do. This Panzerjägerstück cleans up that infantry unit. These Volksdeutsche are going to take that their place, and the Stuart-Recce, well, that's going to get involved. Oh, that was a little bit of a mistake there, I feel. I think player stopped to try and use the Panzerfaust onto the Stuart-Recce, but basically ended up sacrificing the heavy cover, and therefore both of these squads got chunked by the machine guns. Stug 3 does manage to get the job done onto the Stuart-Recce, but certainly an awkward position for these Volksdeutsche now as they're forced to fall back. Quick little surrender there for the Sturm Pioneers as the Flam Panzer melts an infantry squad. On the top side, Panzerschreck destroys another Stuart-Recce, and now these Volksdeutsche are going to try and make some ground. So a very tactical game once again, a very slow game across the board. No significant pushes through each other. And honestly, it's nice to see some of these games sometimes where the players are really trying to think of ways to get around their opponents, because each side is basically so adept at responding to anything the other player does, and that's why it generally ends up like this. So it's just a matter of two very decent players going up against each other and not really being able to counter each other's moves, or are countering each other's moves, but so much so that they can't really make ground themselves. Anyway, 17-pounder takes a shot at the Panzerjägerstück. Stug's just going to try and stay hidden from that, I would believe, as there is no reason for the Panzerjägerstück to actually engage the 17-pounder, but Spitfire Mark 9 going to come in for the strafing run. Not the best idea, and you can see Fussel had second thoughts about that as he remembered the AA that player had set up. But player's done it. He's cracked the AVRE. He moved the Panzerschreck squad through the factory, found the shot, and that leaves the infantry here quite vulnerable as long as player sort of plays around the line of sight of the 17-pounder, sorry. So yeah, the AVRE is gone, and that is very significant because it's such a useful fire support vehicle for destroying a lot of the infantry availability that player has. And Fussel was doing a nice job of killing a lot of the infantry in the early game, but with the AVRE now gone, that could turn things around a little, because it gives a lot more freedom to the movement of infantry on the side of player. Panther D has been brought in on this top side. They are only 200 points apiece in phase C for the first SS, and that's something that can make them so desirable. This one on the top side just taking shots at the Command Stuart. Wolf 190A8 has come out to play. Vesper, that is going to be joining the party. Finally, player might actually use his artillery since this 257 is still sitting at the backside of the factory, not doing too much. When, for example, in this case, it could help just pin down the rifles and rifle leader and therefore lead to surrenders. Panther D actually dueling with a 17-pounder, not the place it wants to be. 17-pounder with its 16 AP will eventually penetrate the 13 front armor of the Panther D, unless the Panther can get out of range, which it will do. Risky engagement there for player, but does get away with it. Now, Assault Pioneers coming in to challenge the factory. Panzerschreck does miss the truck, allowing the Assault Pioneers to unload. But does put these Assault Pioneers in a pretty awkward situation if there were any MGs to stop them from running to the building, which there are not. So it's quite simply just multiple squads up against two Panzerschreck men, and that is not a place they want to be. Vesper is going to try and counter battery the 17 pounder. Just get rid of that if you can, or at least just pin it down so the Panther D can take direct care of it. 25 pounder is on the side of Fussel now though, which may help pin the Panther and do a bit of morale damage to it, allowing the 17 pounder to get an easier kill. But that 17 pounder moving away from the artillery might not even end up pinned again. Just looking for that line of sight and range onto the Panther D. Oh, nice movement here by the Sturm Pioneers. Is going to get the flamethrower onto the target of these Assault Pioneers at an ideal range and does a lot of damage in the process. Really wants to take out as many of these Assault Pioneers as he can, as quickly as he can. And it looks like Fussel, he used one of the grenades, he took out the flamethrowers, but as you can see, those squads are all dead. Not really sure that was worth it. That's like 45 points worth of infantry. Dead for 20 points of infantry. Which is quite significant, especially when it comes to infantry availability as well. So 17 pounder here. I believe it is spotted by player. He does have a Volksdeutscher that could be attacking it, I believe. Let me just jump into player's perspective. He actually cannot because there is no recon here. I thought them being that close might spot them, but if this was recon then that would definitely be the case. That is interesting. Does player know where it is? He has seen it move to one side. You can see him adjusting the fire, but still not on the right location. Now these Vespers though, very, very useful. Very versatile artillery with a strong range and do come in armoured, so it makes them hard to counter battery, especially by the 25 pounders that the 15th Infantry Scots often use. 17 pounder in the mid, that's going to find a shot onto the Flampanzer. Taking that out will allow these rifles and Assault Pioneers to attack the factory more efficiently. So that's a nice clean kill there. Volksdeutscher though, the amount of them may still present a threat. Not in this case though, as that squad gets wrecked. Panzer 4J also in a very nice position here, but Fussel now bringing up the AT gun, and that could get some clean shots if it's deployed in the right place. But across the board still 50-50, and no significant amount of points in either direction. We see 346 points for Fussel, 138 for player. And so the game goes on. Who can make the break? Looks like shot comes through there from the 17 pounder, kills the Stug, but the Panzer 4J replies with a kill onto the 6 pounder, which is pretty nice indeed. Now these Vespers, they're actually going to try and counter battery the 25 pounder here. They could also look for the shot onto the 17 pounder that did reveal itself. And I think that's something that player really needs to get on top of throughout this game, is just finding these 17 pounders so that his Panthers don't have to be so scared. At the moment the Panthers can't really push aggressively. And I think infantry availability will actually be a big problem for player, when usually with the 1st SS it's not so much of an issue due to the reliance on Volksdeutscher. But since I mentioned like 5 cards being committed to Phase A in the form of those 2 MG squads, and the Sturm Pioneers, and 1 card of Volksdeutscher, and the command, like all just in Phase A, it definitely makes you wonder whether or not players going to have enough later in the game to sort of win, basically. So the Panther G does manage to pin down the 17 pounder. That's very important. Spitfire Mark 9 not going to really do too much to help pin that down. But the 17 pounder, it isn't spotted anymore, and therefore the Panther G can't finish the job. And we all know the closer that 17 pounder gets to 1 health, the more deadly it becomes. Not for any particular reason, for those who don't know, but it just seems to be a curse that when an AT gun gets down to 1 health and they end up retreating, when they come back they always seem to do so much more damage. Anyway, Panther D takes out the Stuart on the top side. This 17 pounder looking deadlier than ever on 1 health. On the bottom side, Tripolston actually being used to hold back the Volksdeutsche. Not sure that's entirely intentional, probably just having the AA in there to help against that Focke-Wulf that's been a little bit of a threat throughout the game so far. Panther G going to be backing off again. 88 has joined it. That's going to help support into some of this infantry as the Volksdeutsche makes a push. Panther D coming in. Panther D for the factory as well. And with the amount of Panthers that are on the map right now, I'm very surprised that more damage isn't being done. It seems like both players have so much. They have so many units. It's crazy. I don't think I've seen this many units on a map in a 1v1 before, because neither player is really doing any significant damage to each other. You can see the Churchill 7 here on the side of Fussel. He's got the Churchill 4 on the top side, the Honey, 2 Honeys in the mid, the Churchill 5 on the bot. And on the side of player, he's got significantly more invested in tanks. He's got the Panther D, 2 Panther Ds, 3 Panther Ds, and the Panther G. Here comes the 17 pounder though for another go, and the longer these engagements go on, I feel like it's going to get to the point where player ends up losing his Panthers to these like one-shots from AT guns, because it seems to me like he's getting a little bit lucky with some of these engagements, and he's getting away with sort of engagements that he probably shouldn't be. So either way, Volksdeutsche do take out one of the Honeys near the factory. A little bit mistimed for Fussel because his infantry is just coming in to attack, so it would have been nice to have that Honey there to provide that machine gun fire. 17 pounder is rolling back into position on the top side, but not much time left for either of these players to really make a significant difference. It's currently 6 minutes and 50 left on the clock, and well, we did just see the mortar go down there. I think the 17 pounder must have got a clean shot through the buildings there and found the kill. So that mortar half track in the end didn't really do too much. Just ended up dying. But Volksdeutsche trying to make a push again on this bottom side are supported by a new 257 mortar carrier. Panthers are on the case. And this is a very strong bottom side of the map, especially against what Fussel has to offer. You get a Focke-Wulf to strafe this 17 pounder or the 6 pounder, you're in a good spot. He's also got the 257, of course, that can have a go, and with its 2-star veterancy will be firing very quickly. It's only a matter of time until that actually hits the mark. It's been relatively unlucky that he hasn't already, but as soon as he sees that spot pop up, there's potential that we might see a push come through from these Panthers and try and make some significant ground. Vespers also trying to clean up the 17 pounder on the top side. More assault pioneers being invested upon for the factory push from Fussel, but yeah, just the fact that it's remained 50-50 is absolutely baffling me. It's actually incredible how both of these players are butting heads and throwing units at each other across the map, but no one can seem to make any ground from each other due to both of the players being almost too good and preventing the other from making any significant moves by their troop composition. So Stern Pioneers now taking on the rifles in the factory. Fussel trying to make some moves here and there. Wants to basically secure his victory, no doubt. Flanpanzer coming in to support. Nothing really that can fire into the factory other than the 17 pounder, but that's got to find quite a small line of sight in order to get the job done there. All kills come through though on the top side. 25 pounder actually went down. So did the 17 pounder. I think the Vespers were both targeted on separate targets and found them both, which was very, very nice. So good artillery micro coming through there from player and starting to pay off, but with 4 minutes and 15 seconds left on the clock, there's not a lot of time to make enough points to get a significant victory. So still all to play for in this game. 257 does clean up the 17 pounder on the bottom side, but the 17 pounder in the mid is still going to be presenting problems. 25 pounder is now going to be counter batteried by the Vespers. And the Flampanzer here, alongside some new Volksdeutsche, is going to try and make some significant ground. These are the two assault pioneers that were brought in to reinforce. They just get absolutely melted as they move forwards. Churchill 7 is going to be pushing up. Looks like the last one was actually dealt with here, probably due to the Panther D coming through the factory, but the Command Stewart, I think, took out the Flampanzer. So, again, removing the ability for player to actually make some significant ground. Usually these Flampanzers can run all over the enemy, but in this case the 50 cal saving the day, and Fussel's going to try and close the gap there. Player does find himself a +1, but it is currently looking to be a draw. 3 minutes left on the clock. Can either player find the +2, which may still not even be enough to get a win? I think for Fussel possibly it would be, but not for player. Panther D still supporting the attack on the top side, does kill off the Churchill 4. 1 health AT gun, 17 pounder. Can it find the kill onto the Panther D? We'll have to wait and see. The Stug, that's being engaged by a 17 pounder. Do you know it is not? It is actually engaging the 259 there. 88 though is going to clean up the MMG carrier. May find a shot onto the 17 pounder as well, which will then allow the Stug to freely engage it. Vesper's now coming in with the shots, clean shots. 2 shots and down onto the 17 pounder. Very nice indeed. Gets the job done. Panther D now gets a clean hit onto the Churchill 5 on the bottom side. Still a +1 for player, and he is going to continue to gain the momentum as this game goes on, but there's just not enough time left on the clock. He's got a nice clean hit there into the Churchill 7, takes it out with the Panther D. His KD is going to be on point, but is it going to matter? No, because he's not going to have enough points to outright win the game. Churchill 5 does go down. Panther G is certainly making ground here. The other infantry continuing the push. You've got the Spear Troop leading the charge with the Recon. Volksdeutsche following them up. Panther D is here. Nice cost efficient unit with the 200 points. Gets the engine destroy onto the Churchill 5. Volksdeutsche nearly close enough to use their Panzerfaust as well. But the Churchill 5 gets picked off by the Panther, and well, what was quite a stable game for a very long time with a sort of stalemate at the 50-50. It has suddenly broken through to the point where players found a +2 at the end of the game. But with 56 seconds left on the clock, it's getting so damn close to just becoming a draw. And Fussel, no real way for him to make any more ground at this point, so just needs to hold on long enough that player doesn't make that enough points to find the victory. So 35 seconds, sorry, left. Player has definitely left it too long at this point, and on the 257, it's going to be mortaring something. I don't know exactly what, but 17 pounder creeping round, looking for the shot here onto the Panther D. Actually kills the Panther G towards the mid. Nice sweet kill there for Fussel at the end of this game, but what a weird game to watch. It was another full-length one. And player certainly had the advantage at the end, but couldn't quite make the ground. And that, guys, is going to be a draw. Now, in Herr Robert's Grand Tournament, the rules for a draw are as follows. Basically, they just have to play again. They have to play exactly the same map with the same divisions and sort of basically pretend that this game never happened and just play the second game again. Like, that's, I think, how it basically works. But as you can see, player with the significant kill death, 4,125 kills to 1,965 losses at the end there. Played very well indeed. Fussel held on quite nicely, but just couldn't really make any ground. Player wouldn't let it happen. And then, like, moving into the late game against the first SS, there's no way you can break through that many cheap Panthers. Like, Fussel, of course, was going to be in trouble at that point, and that's where a lot of the points went. Churchill 7s died. He lost a lot of aircraft throughout the game. There was a lot of points lost, that's for sure. So, in terms of kills early on, this AVRE was actually doing a really nice job of being a complete pain in the ass for player. Couldn't find a way to kill it. The Stug 3 just didn't want to get through it. But at the same time, those Stugs were bouncing shot after shot from the 6-pounders. But in the end, 6-pounders did manage to find a couple kills there. But then in the mid-game, just wasn't really too much going on. The 17-pounder did manage to kill the Stug 3, but none of these were really getting good value, except from the 17-pounder at the end, which killed the Panther G and the Panther D. In terms of losses, though, VulcanHDGaming early on dominated that factory, forced the reply of the Honey Stuart to come in and kill that. I think it, in the end, got killed by a 6-pounder. And the Stug killed off a Churchill 4 and the Honey, so that one did quite well. The other Stugs, though, were just lucky to be alive for the most part. The amount of shots they bounced in the front armor was pretty ridiculous. Churchill 5 there did go down to a Stug in the end. But these Panthers, look at that. Panther G smashing through units at range. I think they were managed very well, actually, the Panthers. He kept them back, but maybe could have been a bit more aggressive in the end of the day. And did probably need to bring in those Vespers early on. I think player brought those in way too late. And the artillery that he did have on the field early on, especially next to the factory, he just didn't use that much. And it definitely delayed a lot of the ground that I think he otherwise could have made, and led to the draw instead of victory. Because at the end, obviously, player was significantly in the lead, and with an extra minute or two, probably would have had enough points to claim the victory. Panther D again, both getting nice kills, and another one at the end there, cleaning up as well. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, we're moving on to a third game, guys. It's not technically the third game of a best of 3, it's just a replay of the second game of the best of 3, just to be confusing. So we will have to wait and see the outcome of that one. In the meantime though, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.